Okay, so I am bound and determined that I'm going to do this video today, come hell or high water. So this is my third try because it just briefly just cut off on me again. I do not know why it's doing this. All I can figure is because there's a lot more bandwidth being used at 2:45 in the afternoon, whereas at midnight, not as much. Only thing I can figure. So, with that being said, let me get my mouse off of the words in live video. I was reading verse 17 of Numbers 12, and I just read in verse 20, verse 20, uh, it said, further into verse 20, it said, be of good courage, and bam, that's where it cut it off. So after that, it says, and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin and as far as Rehob near the entrance of Hamath. And they went up through the south and came to Hebron, Ahiman. Toby, stop it. Sheshai and Talmai and the descendants of Anak were there. Just come in, see, Toby. Just come in. He doesn't care about you. Now Hebron was built. Toby was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. Then they came to the valley of Escol, and there cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. Toby. They carried it between two of them on a pole. They also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol, because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told them, sorry, I'm actually speaking with one of the praise team members. We're talking about doing a new song called Come Jesus Come. Let's see. There we go. So she's having trouble with it. She's having trouble with the timing on the piano chords, is what she's saying, James. Ugh, I'm just gonna have to just brush up and just learn the song myself, playing it on the piano, even if it's just very vague, just like one key to where I'm singing. I just whatever, because I want to do that song. I don't know if y'all know that song, "Come Jesus Come," uh, but it's Stephen or Stephen Worth. How do you say his name? Let's see, Stephen McWhirter, I think it is. Mm, yeah, McWhirter. Yeah, I'll put that in the comment section. Actually, I can do that from here. So I have it on my phone. My Pastor Glenda from my other church that I used to attend for so many years, she shared this one day to her post, and I have just absolutely been in love with this song ever since. It's such an excellent song. I'm just going to share it to my Facebook. I've shared it before. Oh, I don't want to share an image. Oh, I'll do it later. Anyway, uh, let me just continue here. Okay. So the place was called, the cluster. Okay, did that. Then they told him and said, "We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell in the sea, by the sea, and along the banks of the Jordan. Why is CB in? He could be outside. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw it in are men of great stature. There we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight." So this is an excellent example of unbelief. Wait a minute, why is it showing 14? Oh yeah, because I had just wait a minute. Yeah, I already yeah. Okay, yeah, I already did 13. That's right. So that's right. I was thinking I skipped a chapter. Yeah, that's definitely unbelief. God says, "I'm going to give you this land." It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't have mattered. But it's easy for us to say, "Here, comfortable in our house and our," you know, it's easy for us to say. We weren't there. You know what I mean? But being leaders of God's army, they should have known better. But Caleb knew better. He was like David. David didn't win. He didn't kill Goliath because he fought well. He was victorious because he believed well. Amen. Nothing is impossible with our God. All right, so here is chapter 14. What should have been maybe at the most 45 minutes to an hour is turning into a day. And this is making me irritated because I have a lot to do today. A lot that I wanted to do today anyway. Okay, so characters. Moses, we know. Israelites, we know. Joshua, Caleb, and Aaron. We know all these things. When, I think, is still the same. Yes. And where they are camped in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. So we already knew this. Okay. So the outline, what is it doing? Down arrow doesn't work either. Okay, so in the outline, the Israelites rebel against God and Moses. So the first 12 verses. Boy. After hearing the bad report from the men who were sent to spy out the land of Canaan, the Israelites grumbled about Moses and Aaron. Look how close they are to the promised land. They're right there. Ah, they grumbled about Moses and Aaron. They said they wished they had died in Egypt or in the wilderness. Some of the people wanted to choose a new leader to take them back to Egypt. Joshua and Caleb tried to get the people to put their faith in God and to believe he would empower them to conquer the land, but the people threatened to stone them. To keep Joshua and Caleb from being stoned, God's glory appeared at the tabernacle and he threatened to destroy the whole multitude. Verses 13 through 19. Moses advocated on behalf of the people. He was concerned that if God destroyed the people, God would no longer be respected by the surrounding nations who had marveled at hearing about his 10 plagues on Egypt. Moses appealed to God's forgiving nation and asked for forgiveness for Israel. The Lord's pardon and punishment, verses 20 through 38. God granted Moses' request and did not destroy the people, but he did punish them. The 10 faithless spies died by plague before the Lord. God told Moses no one over the age of 20 would be allowed to enter Canaan apart from Joshua and Caleb. God was going to punish Israel by making them live in the wilderness for 40 years until all the people in the older generation died for their unbelief. Was going is in there twice. Let's take that out. Not that it matters, but okay. Oops. The Israelites were told to turn around and head back towards the Red Sea. And verses 39 through 45, when the people heard their punishment, they mourned greatly. The next day they told Moses they were going to go to Canaan and fight for the land. Moses advised them not to do it because the Lord would not bless them. Some individuals fought with the Amalekites and the Canaanites in the hill country, but they were swiftly defeated. The application here: being on God's side will require you to be in the minority. This is a pattern we'll see repeated throughout the Bible. Trusting God and doing His will has never been popular. Jesus told His disciples it would always be this way, Matthew 7:13 and 14. Being a servant of God requires separating yourself from the majority. Amen. Okay, Numbers 14. Israel refuses to enter Canaan. Sorry, so sorry. I keep answer her real quick. Okay. Numbers 14. Israel refuses to enter Canaan. So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night, and all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, as always. And the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, 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 yeah, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. They are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. Moses intercedes for the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people reject me? And how long will they not believe me with all the signs which I have performed among them? I will strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. And Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear it, for by your might you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, Lord, are among these people, that you, Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them, and you go before in a pillar of cloud by day and in a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill these people as one man, then the nations will have heard of your fame, will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. And now I pray, let the power of my Lord be great, just as you have spoken, saying, the Lord is long suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression. But he by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. So I'm going to stop right there, because as I'm reading this, I'm thinking of a thing that I saw where Jesse Duplantis claims that God asked he said he walked into his office one day and Jesus was there and Jesus was really looking down, really sad. And he asked him, Lord, is there something I can help you with? In so many words. And I will post this video that I'm talking about. And in so many words, he was saying that Jesus was basically asking Jesse Duplantis what he should do about a certain matter. And Jesse told him, "Don't you worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'm pretty sure I can bring him to you and get him to believe in you." In so many words, I'll post that video. And we know that God does not need man. God does not need mankind or man. We need God. And so when I'm reading this, a lot of people can misinterpret this that God was kind of at a whatever that word is I can't think of, to where he's not sure what to do because they're not believing him after all he's done, and they're still not believing him. And he's, what is that? Not a bypass. What is that word? Um, Whatever. And he just doesn't know what to do. Oh my gosh, how precious! I just noticed that Toby stole Sister's squishy and snuggled up to it and went to sleep. I told you he nuzzles her squishy sometimes. He still has it in his mouth. James, come look at Toby. Once in a while, he'll steal her squishy and put himself to sleep with it. Is it in his mouth or is his face just at it? Yeah, well, he was nursing it, I promise you. That's why it's like that. He nursed himself to sleep with it. Still, he still thinks there's nipple in there somewhere. And he finds something. That's so cute. Anyway, sorry, sidetrack. But this right here, where Moses is imploring God not to destroy everyone, and and it's almost making it sound like God doesn't know what to do because he just can't seem to understand, whatever. Don't misinterpret. A lot of people misinterpret this scripture and they take it and twist it. And then like him, Jesse Duplantis, who made it sound like God was needing his uh, opinion on what to do on a matter. I cringe at even talking about it, but I kid you not, I will find the video and it's not hard at all to share it. Um, and I'm not meaning to bash a pastor. If he was a real, true pastor called by God to do his work and he wasn't a charlatan, I would never, ever, ever say a bad word about him. But he's not. He's not. He's not. He's not. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is merely in it for the money. And I could show proof for days, years, months, eternity. So, anyways, I'll continue. So, please don't ever let this make you think that God ever has to have our input on a matter, ever, on how to do something. He was more likely testing Moses, right? Because God knows everything before it happens. He knew everything that we would do before we were even knit in our mother's womb. He knew from beginning to end what we would do, say, think, touch, feel, eat, smell. You know what I'm saying? From the time we were born until the time we die. He would know the last thought in our brain before our brain quit working when we died. I'm just saying. So, because the Lord was not able to bring this people, he killed them in the wilderness. Okay, we've read all that. The Lord is long suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving, and okay, I'm picking up on 18. Long suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression. But he by no means clears the guilty. Dang it. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even till now. What's happening here is God is showing his mercy, right? His mercy and his grace is coming through to where he doesn't destroy them. And it's not because Moses said, if you do this, they're going to think bad of you. No, it's his mercy because he loves his children. Don't start, Gregory. Just go do whatever it is you need to do. Can he go outside? Is it too cold for him? Please? I'm trying to do a video. I don't need. He was not hurt. If you heard that, he was not hurt. He's deaf, so when he meows, he yells. I mean, like exceedingly loud. If you touch him, he'll do that right there. If you heard it, yeah. They need. Some of the cats are safe to go outside because they don't leave the yard. So when it's nice, they're outside. So that's just less litter pan, and that's more outside that some of the cats can have. 'Cause you keep a cat cooped up in the house all the time, and they don't get fresh air, and they don't get sunshine, and they don't get to eat grass and roll in the dirt and get germs in their mouth and all that. They can become sickly. I have 3 cats that are sneezing with snot running out of their nose constantly. I don't know if it's an allergy because there's so many cats inside the house, or if it's dust, and I did dust except for the bedroom. So I don't know what it is, but it's got to be that they need to be outside more. So yeah, he could go outside. Well, before it gets too cold, anyway. Anyway, God, I just need to get through this video. Ugh. Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. Then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word, but truly as I live, all the people shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, because all these men who have seen my glory and the signs which I did in Egypt, in the wilderness. Okay, my mouse is not wanting to get over here. There we go. And have put me to the test now these 10 times, and I have not heeded my voice, and have not heeded my voice. They certainly shall not see the land of which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move out into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. Death sentence on the rebels. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, How long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complains against me? I have heard the complaints which the children of Israel spoke against me. Say to them, As I live, says the Lord, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness. All of you who were numbered, according to your entire number, from 20 years old and above, except for Caleb the son of Jephunneh, I think, and Joshua the son of Nun, you shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But your little ones, whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. According to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, for each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection. I, the Lord, have spoken this. I will surely do so to all this evil the congregation who are gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall be consumed, and there they shall die. Well, they kept accusing God that He brought them out there to die, so now they're going to, now they are, because of their unbelief and disobedience. Now the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation complain against him by bringing a bad report of the land, those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before the Lord. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive of the men who went to spy out the land. A futile invasion attempt. Then Moses told these words to all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. And they rose early in the morning, and went up to the top of the mountain, saying, Here we are, and we will go up to the place which the Lord has promised, for we have sinned. And Moses said, Now why do you transgress the command of the Lord? For this will not succeed. Do not go up, lest you be defeated by your enemies, for the Lord is not among you. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword, because you have turned away from the Lord. The Lord will not be with you. But they presumed to go up to the mountain top. Nevertheless, neither the ark of the covenant of the Lord nor Moses departed from the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in that mountain came down and attacked them and drove them back as far as Hormah. And that's the end of 14. And then Mark 5, opening on the wrong page, wrong screen, I mean, 21 through 43. Now, doggone it, I had this set up just the way I wanted it. I Really? There we go. Okay, so verses 21 through 24. And when Mark 5 verses 21 through 24. And make sure I'm still going. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." And he went with them, and a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. Returning from the Gerasenes, Jesus arrived at Capernaum to large crowds. Several times the Gospels mention people waiting and watching at the shore for Jesus to arrive. There were probably sick people who couldn't wait for Jesus to come back so he could take them out of their pain and suffering. What will Jesus' arrival mean to you? Do you dread the thought of Jesus coming back because your life isn't right? Or are you liking these people, anxiously awaiting his arrival so he can take you out of a world of pain and suffering? A man, Jairus, approached him and earnestly implored him to come to his house and heal his daughter, who was close to death. The text says he went with him. Jesus seemed to have respect for for bold faith and bold requests. Jesus was the most important man in Capernaum. It probably would have taken some courage to approach Jesus and ask him to follow you. The man may have thought, "Who am I to ask for Jesus' time?" There were probably plenty of other things Jesus could have been doing, probably plenty of important people who wanted Jesus' time. But Jesus rewards the man with the bold request and goes with him to his house. What would Jesus be willing to do for us and with us if we came to him so boldly? Have you ever felt like you've asked Jesus for too much? Like your prayer is too bold or too big? I wonder if this man struggled with the same doubt when considering whether to ask Jesus, but look at the way Jesus answered him. Verses 24 through 26. And he went with him, and a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. On the way to Jairus' house, a large number of people surrounded Jesus, but Mark and the other gospel writers draw our attention to this woman with a discharge of blood. We are told her ailment had caused her great suffering, and she had spent all her money on doctors who were ultimately no help. If this woman were a Jew, this ailment would have been particularly troubling, as it likely would have made her ceremonially unclean and would have excluded her from a significant amount of Jewish life. Put yourself into the position of a person like this, someone who was perpetually unclean according to the law of Moses. They lived in a constant state of unwelcomeness. They couldn't go to the temple, they couldn't participate in the feasts, etc. What if you weren't allowed over to your family's house for Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner? If you were banned from going into the church building where you once worshiped? Been there. Under false pretenses, been there. This would have been true for the lepers Jesus healed. Can you imagine contracting leprosy and in an instant having your invitation revoked too, everywhere you were once welcome? And it wasn't their fault. This woman didn't choose to have a discharge of blood. Imagine how much a miracle of healing would have meant to this kind of person. To finally have a chance to be welcome again. In healing our sins, God gives us all a place to be welcome, the church. The church should be where healed people find a home. So if you've gone through life feeling unwelcome everywhere you go, Jesus invites you to a place you can belong. And of course, that is only a shadow of what heaven will be. Verses 27 and 28. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garments, I will be made well." And just let me clarify, when I said I have been there, there was a certain Baptist church that I attended way back when I was a single mother with two small children. Okay. And the only dresses I owned, because I was never much of a dress wearer back in my early 20s, early 30s, mid to late 20s, whatever, were like they were summer dresses, with the spaghetti straps, but they weren't mini dresses. They at least came like just to the knee. But that's all I had, but at least it was a dress, right? So I was trying to dress as nice as I could for church. And I had gone like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And then one day after church, a lady came up to me and hands me a piece of paper and says, "Here you go, sister," or sweetheart, or whatever, and walked away. And I looked at it, and it was their dress code. That's all she said to me was, "Here you go, sweetheart," and so or whatever, and walked away. Not This is generally what we, request of our attendants to wear. Now, she didn't offer like, hey, some of us ladies have dresses that, we've either outgrown or we no longer wear, hey, we put our money together and we got you this gift card so you can maybe go buy a couple of dresses that'll, because they do have a dress code. None of that. Here, here you go. So in other words, don't come back unless you're dressing as this dress code is listing. That's what I was talking about. So anyone from anywhere else that's here and heard that, don't just immediately jump to assume I'm talking about you, because that's actually what I was thinking of when I said that. Sadly, a lot of times people think I'm talking about them, and it's not even the case. So, anyways, Mark, and it's sad that I even have to clarify that. Mark 5:27 and 28. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garments, I will be made well." Mark 5:29. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Now, having heard the power of Jesus, she determined he was her best hope. She made her way through the crowd, confident could be healed if she only touched the hem of Jesus' clothes. When she had managed it, her faith was confirmed, and she could feel the healing inside of her. Actually, that should have been a typo fixed. Not my typo. It should have caught it whenever I ran the spell check. That's weird. Verses 5, chapter 5, verses 30 through 34. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." Excuse me. Jesus immediately recognized power had gone out of him. Rather than an unclean person touching Jesus and making him unclean, the unclean received his cleanliness by touching him. Kind of like the leper that he touched. You weren't supposed to go within so many cubits of a leper, but not only did he touched him, he didn't become leprous, the leper became clean. Same difference right here. Rather than lepers, oh, ha! I swear, God is my witness, strike me dead if I'm lying. I swear I did not know that's what it said in the next line. I should just read and not just go off script and go with what I already know. So yeah, the very next line says, rather than lepers touching Jesus and giving him leprosies, the lepers touched Jesus and they were made healthy. I kid you not. I swear, I swear, I swear I did not know it said that. It's just like when I was reading that first line, it immediately made me think of the leper that he healed. Anyway, it's a powerful picture of Jesus' untarnishable power and purity. He asked the crowd, "Who touched my garments?" The disciples were confused why Jesus would ask this, considering he was surrounded by a crowd and was likely being touched by dozens of people. But Jesus and this woman knew this was a different kind of touch than the average shoulder rubbing against another. In fear, the woman emerged from the crowd and admitted to her actions. But there was no reason for fear. Jesus spoke kindly to her and commended her faith. James, do me a favor. Will you get that crock pot and put it back on and put it on low? high, put it on high, the crock pot, put it back together, plug it in, put it on high. Of course, Jesus knew who it was who had touched him, so why did he ask? Why reveal the identity of the woman? I can think of at least three reasons. To bring glory to God for the miracle. The people in the city may have known this woman and her affliction. They may have known she had been to every doctor in the city. They couldn't heal her, but Jesus did, to give the people a picture of great faith and for the benefit of the woman. That way they would know she's clean, right? Uh, Jesus may have exposed her out of generosity. Here was a woman who, if a Jew, had been ceremonially unclean with an observable disease for 12 years. It would be suspicious if she showed up one day out of the blue claiming her ailment had disappeared. Okay, exactly. Jesus may have done this out of kindness to inform the people she had been healed. Compare the boldness of Jairus to the tim, timidity, timidity, the timidness of this woman. Why not say it that way? The timidness. I can't even say timidity. Whatever of this woman. Jairus. Say it right, Debbie. Jairus came in boldness, asked Jesus to take time out of his day to come to his house. What parent would not do that? What parent would not do that? This woman in secret ran her fingers across the hem of Jesus' garment. Actually, she grabbed the tassels hanging off, the titsits, as you want to call it, uh, while he walked by. Probably the most unobtrusive way of touching somebody ever. And in actuality, by touching just the tassels, she didn't touch his clothing, so therefore she would not have made him unclean anyway. Um, I love that Jesus honors the requests of both. There are people with great boldness of faith who approach God's throne knowing they are his children and have his ear. There are people who come to God in deep humility and poverty of spirit. God hears them both and will bless them both. Mark 5:35 and 36. While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what was said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." While Jesus was commending the faith of the woman, messengers from Jairus' house arrived to tell him it was too late. His daughter was dead. The messengers told Jairus there was no need to bother the teacher, Jesus. It's one thing to have power over disease, it's another to have power over death. Disease is a physical bodily problem, but raising someone from the dead requires command of a person's spirit. Jesus overheard the conversation and tells Jairus not to worry, only believe. To Jairus' credit, we don't read that he did anything but believe. We don't read about him complaining. The woman with the issue of blood slowed things down, right? Verses Mark 5:37 through 43. And this is our rest of our reading for today. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter. I swear he set these up to go hand in hand with these daily breads. Isn't that a trip? Uh, and he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. I'm going to stop right there because I want to go a little bit further into why they laughed and why he threw them out. Because there's a little more to than a little more to it than what seems to be obvious, right? Mark 5. Move back. Sure, I'm still going. Yeah, okay. Okay, so when you come in, why do you make this a do and weep? Jesus was not in sympathy with this custom and practice. And they would actually sometimes hire people to mourn at a funeral and whatnot. Yeah. The damsel is not dead, but sleeps. Did not mean that she was actually not dead, as well the word sleepeth brings us to the fact of the resurrection. In the scriptures, the dead are constantly referred to as sleeping. However, it is only the body which sleeps, with the soul and the spirit is at death, instantly going to be with Christ, that is, if the person is saved. And they, the paid mourners, there you go, laughed him to scorn, meaning that they ridiculed him. What simpletons! Okay, so I'm reading the study part with the verse. But when he had put them all out, demanded that they leave, he took the father and the mother of the damsel, and them who were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. The word entereth. Okay, it doesn't actually say. Well, I'll be darned. Well, I know that I think part of I read in one of my study Bibles though where it talks about, and somewhere I read maybe in here. I think in the it's gonna. I bet he covers it. I bet he covers what I was looking for. So I'll just go ahead and read it. Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child's not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him, but he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. And I know that some of that has to do with the fact that they were paid mourners, some of them, and also it's something to do with Satan. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, Talitha Kumi, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immensely overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. Arriving at the house, Jesus took only 3 of the apostles with him, Peter, James, and John. Together they entered the house with Jairus and his wife. There they encountered several mourners. Jesus asked them, Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping. Scientifically, the mourners knew the girl was dead, but they didn't know the creator of science and the conqueror of death was standing in front of them. They laughed at Jesus' question. I don't think it was right for them to laugh at Jesus. They clearly didn't know who he was. But imagine if you were at the funeral of a loved one and a man you didn't know showed up and said, Why are you all crying? Your loved one isn't dead. They are just sleeping. Would you laugh or mock? Those who heard Paul's preaching in Acts 17 mocked the idea of resurrection from the dead. Many today mock and laugh at the idea there is life after death. We would be wise to evaluate who is claiming the power of resurrection before we laugh. We might be laughing in the face of our Creator. Jesus obviously knew the girl was physically dead, but he was about to wake her up as if she were only asleep. He took a small audience into the room where the girl was laying, took her by the hand, saying, Little girl, I say to you, arise. Oh, come on now. Fine. As the Word of God had put life into all things in the beginning, Jesus' words put life back in the body. Consider the complexity of restarting a dead human body. All the organs kick-starting at once, function coming back to the brain, pushing blood through cold veins, restoring of decaying organ tissue, oxygen-starved muscles, firing at full capacity, eyes redilating, blood pressure and oxygen levels stabilizing. Jesus managed the complexity in a word. Side effects were non existent. The girl wasn't even dizzy. She got up immediately and started walking around as if she had been asleep. I'm sure the statement they were immediately overcome with amazement is not an understatement. And again, we find Jesus telling people not to talk about the miracle publicly. He is not yet ready for his identity as the Messiah to be made known. Contrast this with what he told the demon possessed man in verse 19. Why the difference? It may have come down to location and audience. Unless I'm mistaken, Jesus usually tells Jews not to spread the news about his miracles, but he encourages their spread when performed in non Jewish areas. Man healed of the demons in Mark 5, woman at the well in John 4. There may be exceptions to this. I'll continue to evaluate this theory as we go through our study. 2 additional observations from the second half of chapter 5. Take a moment to contrast the healing of the woman with the issue of blood in Jairus' daughter. Jairus had enjoyed the joy of his daughter for 12 years. The woman had been afflicted with the discharge of blood for 12 years. Jairus was an important man in the community, ruler of the synagogue. The woman was no one of significance. We don't even know her name. Jairus probably had money. The woman had no money. Jairus approached Jesus and made his request publicly. The woman came up behind Jesus in secret. Hey, computer. I swear. Okay. Jairus wanted Jesus to physically come to his house to perform a healing. The woman only wanted her finger to graze the hem of Jesus' clothing. He didn't even have to break stride. The healing of Jairus' daughter was delayed. The woman was healed immediately. Jairus' daughter was raised to life in a private room. The woman was healed in the midst of a throng of people. These stories are recorded in all three synoptic gospels and are always placed together in the text. Is this contrast part of their significance? Also consider Jesus' delay in arriving at Jairus' house. Jesus knew exactly how much life Jairus' daughter had in her when Jairus initially approached him. He knew if he decided to walk to Jairus' house and encountered the woman with the issue of blood, Jairus' daughter would die on the way. I'm sure Jairus was in a hurry, but Jesus wasn't. This wasn't the only time Jesus would delay healing someone and allow them to die, right? The same thing happened to Lazarus. John 11, only with Lazarus, it's 3:33. Hey, with Lazarus, he allowed him to be dead a total of 4 days by the time he got to him. And there, I've explained that, and we'll cover that when we get to that. Okay, because we're just in Mark right now. We'll be in John soon enough, and we'll cover that. Lazarus' sisters didn't understand why Jesus hadn't arrived earlier to save their brother. Well, by the time the messengers had gotten to Jesus, Lazarus had already been dead 2 days. Or Lazarus had just died, right? Jesus waited 2 more days, so Lazarus had been dead 2 days at this point. And then he traveled to Bethany, I think, where he was, and that's a 2-day travel. So Jesus delayed 2 days, so that means that his friend Lazarus had already been dead 2 days, and then when he did travel, he traveled 2 days. So by the time he got there, Lazarus had been dead 4 days. So the messenger, when he left, didn't know that right after he left, Lazarus died. So by the time he got to Jesus, Lazarus had already been dead 2 days. That's why Jesus delayed, or he didn't know that Lazarus had just died, right? While he was, telling Jesus. Jesus knew, so that's why Jesus delayed 2 days and then said, okay, let's go. And then it took him 2 days to get there. So Jesus delayed 2 days, so the messenger got back, and that's probably when he found out that Lazarus had died after having just gone to go get Jesus. And he's like, well, I went and told him, so he should be on his way. He should be right behind me. But 2 days later, here comes Jesus after that. And Lazarus, by this time, has already been dead 4 days. And that's why the sisters were like, if only you had been here. Okay, I'll explain it since I'm already halfway there. So they knew that 3 days after a person died, within that 3 days, that sometimes they would come back to life because their spirit was still with them. But if they didn't by the fourth day, that means that they knew or they believed that their spirit had gone on to paradise or to Sheol, whichever would apply, right? And their spirit had departed from them, and there was no coming back at that point. So if after the third day, if they have not woke up, then they knew that that person was indeed dead, and then they would go ahead and bury them, right? That's why they called it a wake, because just in case. So on the fourth day, they knew he had to be buried, right? So, I mean, they buried him anyway, but they knew on the fourth day that he was definitely not going to be waking up. And the fact that Jesus was able to say, Lazarus, come forth, and Lazarus got up from his deathbed, still wrapped in his burial clothes, and as if he had just been sleeping, just like the little girl. There was no decaying skin, no decay smell, nothing. Kind of like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that we read about last night in last night's reading, when they came out of the fire and there was no burn smell on them. Their hair wasn't even singed. Their clothes, you wouldn't have even known that they'd been thrown in a fire that was heated 7 times hotter than usual. Same with Lazarus. When he came out, you would have never known this man had been dead 4 days. It was as if he just went in there and laid down and took a nap, and Jesus just woke him up. But the fact that it'd been on the fourth day, and they knew that he was truly dead. That's why they said if you'd been here, you could have saved him. But they thought, it's 4 days that you can't save him now. The fact that he was able to raise Lazarus from the death on the fourth day proved to all that saw it that he was indeed the Messiah. End of story, because only the Messiah. End of story, because only the Messiah could have done that. So there's that. But anyways, that's what it's talking about in 1137. So in John 11, same thing happened to Lazarus. So Lazarus' sisters didn't understand why Jesus hadn't arrived earlier to save their brother, because they knew on the fourth day it's too late now. Doesn't matter if he comes; it's too late. It's past the third day. His spirit's already left him. The Jews also said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying?" John 11:37. Why didn't Jesus speed things up? Jesus told his apostles he was glad he was not there so that you may believe, because this would prove once and for all to his apostles that he was indeed the Messiah. Because for some reason, his apostles, even though they saw all these healings and all these things that Jesus did, walking on the water and the whole thing, they still didn't believe a lot. It's weird. The apostles had witnessed many healings, but seeing a living person healed from sickness isn't as amazing as seeing someone brought back to life from the dead. Jesus may have delayed to have an opportunity to perform a greater miracle and create stronger faith in those who witnessed it. Is it possible he still behaves this way today? Well, yes, he did delay on purpose because, like I said, come the fourth day, he wasn't just bringing them back to life, he was calling their spirit, their soul, back from hell, basically, or paradise, whichever may apply. Jesus may have delayed to have an, yeah, okay, I just said that. Is it possible he still behaves this way today? Have you ever been in a situation or witnessed a situation where people were anxiously awaiting God to show up and save them? They knew they needed God's help. Their faith was in the right place, but God was delaying. Why? Maybe he delays to build greater faith when he provides a more astounding salvation. Absolutely been there. Oh, and that's the end of Mark 5. Okay, so means that's the end of our teaching, our reteaching, our reading for today. I mean, at least for the Bible study for that one. So we'll go ahead and end this. Yeah, it only took 3 tries to get through it, didn't it? The very first one is only like 3.5 minutes. The second one's like 26 minutes. And then just to finish it, it was another hour. That's a shame. Jeez. But anyways, we got through it. So I'll get some more knocked out after cat's fed and dinner and everything. And I'll get an early start so I can get some more of these done and I won't hee-haw around and get sidetracked. Anyways, I see that there's a spot where it looks like I may have lost sound or something. Anyways, know that Jesus loves you and I love you, and I hope you have a blessed day. And I'll say shalom, shalom for now. Oh, and I bought ticket. I went ahead and purchased a ticket. No, actually, they gave me a free ticket to go see that movie, The Shift, tomorrow. And hopefully this time I'll remember to go. So if any of y'all are watching this and you hear this, please, please send me a text message. Don't send it through Facebook. If you send a message through Facebook, I won't get it. I will not get it. But send me a text message if you have my cell phone number, or if you're on Discord, send me a message to Discord and remind me. Don't forget your movie at 6 o'clock, Debbie, because The Shift is a movie. It's actually like a modern day story about Job. It's actually looks really good, and it has Paris Patel from The Chosen who plays Matthew in it, and it has Liz Tavish who plays Mary of Magdala in it. So yeah, definitely going to be a good movie. So anyways, shalom for now. I love you.